All right, so the first thing I need to do is I need to just get my typography, right? So you guys have already sort of practiced this, but we'll just go through it again. You can skip over this section. All right. So we're back to Google Fonts, all right? And I've done some prep, and I didn't work with Google Fonts in that design, but I found a couple, right, that will work out okay. And the first one I'm looking for is called Hebo. Okay, it's a variable font. And I think I'm going to select light. I'm going to take medium. I'm going to take bold. Okay. Now I could have added them all. I don't think I need them all. I'm just going to take the 3 that I'm looking for. Then the next font I'm going to need is called Libra Baskerville. There it is. And I just need regular. You'll see, let's close this up for a second. Right, these are my font families. And if we take a look inside our link, you'll see that I've got the Hebo with the 300, 500, 800, and then Libra Baskerville with just its regular, okay, and its times. So, all right, we know how to do this. We're going to copy this, our link, and then we're going to paste it before our style sheet. All right, so it's all set there. And then we're going to copy the CSS rules. And again, right, this is just for reference into our style sheet. Just paste them up there. And we're going to add command / a comment. All right, remember, comments deactivate. We can leave notes for ourselves or add some information. So that's just what we want our fonts to be set at. Okay, so we're going to hit save that. All right, so our first thing is we're just going to set the body. Okay. I'll take it, and there it is. Right, and there it is all set to bar sans. All right, and I think I'm going to do the font weight. I'm going to go with the 300. And there we go. Right. So, right, the 300, if we just go back, just a quick, right, light is 300, medium is 500, extra bold is 800. So, setting the font weight to 300. So, the general typesetting, right, and the bolder ones are, the H1s, the H2s, H3s. Each browser has its own default style sheet. So we're going to just have to overwrite all of those. Now the next thing I want to add is the universal selector. There it is, Shift 8. Okay. And the universal selector will select every element on the page, right? And you'll notice, right here, there's like a little space, and there's some space. I want to clean all that stuff up. I don't want there to be any space at all on my items, because I don't want to have to overcome it. I'm just going to overcome it all, and this way, when I'm laying stuff out and I want to put in measurements, everything will be. I know that there's no extra stuff coming in from the CSS style sheet in the browser. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set margin 0. Okay, oops, got to type it right, 0. Okay, and now you see stuff is like, tightening all up, right? It's all moved over. I could also do padding 0, right? That tightens it up even a little bit more. Not much. not really worth it. Okay. All right, so now I'm removing some stuff, I'm getting some things. So let's just take a little look back to our design. Right? And I'm going to go ahead and say, oh, how wide is that? Right, so there's 1073. You can see the little W for width. So it's really 1080, right? 1080 is what I was aiming for. Okay, so now I want my elements to fit within this 1080 window, and then I want it centered right in the browser. Okay, so let's go back to our code. So how are we going to go about doing that? Okay, so now we're going to introduce you to a new tag, and this one is called a div, div, and we're going to just return. And what a div is it's just a selector or just a tag that we use to wrap around other elements. It doesn't have any significance of itself, div for division of, but we use it to group other elements. So I'm just going to go ahead and move this over. And I'm going to set, I'm going to bring all of my stuff, right? Cut it out of there, and put it inside the div. Okay, there we go. All right, save that. Nothing happened, right? Because the div doesn't have any style associated with it. It's really just something that we use to wrap other elements. Okay. So now I'm going to add a new class. Called wrapper. Right? And you remember, right, classes are things that we use when we want to apply styles to multiple elements in our page, right? We can use the element selectors, right? We can target H1s and Ps, but then we can add greater specificity by creating a class and putting that on an element, okay? So the first one I'm going to make is my wrapper. I'll go ahead and save that. We're gonna, right, when we make our rule, it starts with a period. There we go. We'll save that. Again, so Upblame still hasn't done anything. Okay. And we're gonna set our wrapper to have a width of 1080px. Do that and save that. Okay, so we can't really see that anything has happened, all right? Because wrapper doesn't have any other styles. And then we're going to set our margin. Now, when we do our margin, margin can have 4. Right here's margin top, margin bottom, margin left, margin right. So those are the 4 that we can add. We can add them individually. For a top, a bottom, a left, and right. Or we can use what's known as a shorthand rule, right? And margin itself is a shorthand. So let's just go ahead and do it. So we're going to say top. Do I want anything on the top? No, I don't want anything there. And on the left, I'm going to say auto. And on the right, I'm going to say auto, and on the bottom, I'm going to say 0. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And you'll see that when I do that, my content, I'll tighten this up, has added some space here on the side, right? There's still no space on the top and some space here on the right. And it's now centered. And if I change the width of, right, my window, it floats right in the center, right? So what's happening? Let's take a look, right? Width 1080. So it's now created a width of 1080 pixels, right? There's no margin on the top. There's no margin on the bottom. And then on the left, it's saying auto and auto on the right. And what that means is just look at whatever space is over here and here and automatically account for it so that 1080 is just subtracted from whatever this space is, right? If I take it and I go less than 1080, you'll see that there's no margin at all, right? But if there's more, right, then it will keep it centered, right? And that's the basic trick to get most items to center, right? There's a bunch of other ones for specific other types of tags, but in general, your element has to have a width, and then it has to have margin defined. And once you define that, you should be able to get it to center. Like I said, there are other tags that may not apply to that because there's some conditions that these the div_all matches, but this is always the place to start. Now, we don't have to lay this all out with all 4 of these. We can just use what's known as a shorthand, right? Back to our shorthand property, and we'll do 0 and auto, right? And nothing changes. Okay. Now, I had mentioned, right, there are 4 properties, but again, programmers live to optimize, so we can use this kind of syntax, where like if I say 0, there's now going to be 0 margin all around, right? If I save that, it goes back, right? It doesn't give us any layout because we have no margin on the left and right, so it has no way to figure out how to place it, right? So it works from top, goes top, right, bottom, left, so it goes around counterclockwise. So if I say top 0, and then I say right, 50px, and then bottom 50px, and then left 20px, and I save that. Right. Now you'll see I've got just a little space here. I've got no space up here, some space down here. We can also do another trick, and I do this when I'm working on stuff, and I want to keep track of, kind of my border. I add a border to everything, right? And the reason I do this is to match, or to sort of give me a similar look to our design diagram, right? We drew our boxes on that. So we're going to do 1 pixel solid red. Okay. Oops, not iPix. That doesn't count. 1, like that. Okay. And there we go. Now, right, you can see the boxes, right? You see how we're defining this space. Okay. So if I went here, right, this is 20 pixels. If I made this 200 pixels, see it push over. If I add space on the top and I say 600 pixels, all right, you'll see it pushes it way down, right? So by managing, right, and it's outer, right, this is the outer div wrapper around the whole thing, or the body. The outer one is the body. This line here is my div, right? It's my 1080. If I were to change that to 580, right, and then let's just kick this down to 60, right? Right. So by managing the size of the div, right, all the content is now flowing within it, and managing the margin, I can move my stuff around, right? So this is the full syntax: top, left, top, right, left, top, right, bottom, left, going around clockwise. But we can also shorthand it, right? Even shorter than this, right? And what I was doing previously is like, I'm just going to say for the top and the bottom, if you only have the two, right, it's going to be 0, and then auto will do the left and the right. Okay, and there we go. Here it is. Let's go back to 1080. So there's my full width. So this is all pretty good, right? Getting the hang of it. But one of the things now, right, it's like when my window gets too small, all right, the type doesn't wrap, right? It just you know, is cut off. And that's because this value is a fixed value, right? It's not fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. I'm going to call max width. Save that. And now when I do the slide, you'll notice that, oh, look at that, it wraps. It wraps all the content, right? So the difference between a fixed width, right, of width, and a max width is it's going to fill whatever is available and wrap, right? It's going to change its size, but it'll keep getting wider and wider and wider until it hits 1080. And then at 1080, it stops getting wider, right? So if my viewport is less than 1080, my content will wrap within it. And as it gets wider, as soon as it hits 1080, boop, right, it stops expanding and then floats in the center. Okay. All right. So I've spent a lot of time on this, but it's kind of a key concept, right, that we're going through. So I just want to step through one more time, right? We put the div around all of our content, all of our elements. We added a class of wrapper. We then used the wrapper to define our full width. Okay. And, you know, as we go on, we may have to modify this, but this is a good start, right? So we've got our stuff in place, right? And we also linked up our style sheet and our Google fonts. So I'm going to stop here, and in the next video we'll start applying some styles and tightening up this layout.